Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here to review Grimcutty. So, not only is this film a child versus parent film, because that's what it really comes out to be, you could say it's like, oh, well, but, the Grimcutty character, he's really the villain of the story. No. Not in my brain. So, not only do we have that going on, but then I always have this gripe about a horror film where you would go on and have a horror character who is to be wielding a kitchen knife as a weapon in a movie, and I would always go on and blatantly say can't there be ever another kind of weapon to use beyond a kitchen knife? Can't we go on and get past that, do something else? Hence why I would go on and get a sense of relief whenever there was to be another Friday the 13th movie or a Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just to get a little bit of variety out of the 8 billion different horror movies that are all just hey, kitchen knives, isn't this great? And so here's how I go on and I'll explain the whole kitchen knife thing. So in this film, we have two parents that are to go on and, via word of mouth, hear about this challenge that immediately they no longer trust their kids after hearing about this challenge, obviously. And so the parents go on and explain this challenge to the kids as if they know every single thing about it, which they don't, because the kids don't even know what the challenge is when they go and thoroughly Google search it, because they need to frickin' understand why this thing has become a popular word of mouth thing, why it has become this trending thing. And so all of a sudden we end up finding out that these kids are being stalked or followed by this Grimcutty character. And so this movie immediately kind of reminded me of It Follows, with the only exception of the fact that you would go on and have the characters in that movie get intercourse to then have something follow them. Whereas in this movie, there isn't anything like that. It's just just you find out that this thing exists, and now you have to run from it, as the parents are trying to police throughout this whole entire film. But getting back to my point. So, we have these kids who are to continue to somehow cut themselves, or have somehow them be cut. And so the parents go on and they realize that they need to go on to get rid of the item that is to go on and stop giving their kids the most pain. And of course, that item is to be their mobile device, their laptop, or their gaming controller. But hey, leave all the knives and all the sharp objects just easily available throughout the house. You know what? They go on and they buy this unusual box that is to have all of these electronic devices being placed into it. And in my brain, I was thinking, you know what you could use that box for? All the knives and all the sharp objects. Just plop it in there, and the movie would be over by now. Because obviously kids are grabbing the knives to defend themselves, and they end up getting stabbed instead. So yeah, the biggest problem of this film is just if you would take the knives away, the kids would either be dead, or you would go on and find out that these kids are trying to defend themselves with much more long distance items, like a baseball bat or a 2x4 or whatever they can conveniently find that would be a much more unique weapon to go up against a horror character. And you would find out that they're like, wait a minute, like the parents would be like noticing that the kid would be like going in for a windup in a swing, and like there would be some kind of impact, and the swing would stop at some point, and the parents would just be like, wait a minute, something is wrong here. Like obviously my kid is like too old to just be pretending that they're fighting somebody. Something's really wrong here. And then the parents would like pitch in and just be like, hey, like, what's going on? Can I help you with this? And then all of a sudden, boom, credits would roll, story would be over. Because we also have Asha, or Asha, who is to be this ASMR character. I'm like, of course, like, you gotta figure out a way to really modern this movie up, instead of it just feeling like it could have been a movie that went out and been done any year. We have to have that ASMR character come in and make it more modern, because that makes sense, right? And so you would have thought that like Asha would have found out about this whole challenge thing through like her being a YouTuber. But no, she finds nothing about it. You would have thought like maybe there would have been some spam bot, and Asha would have been like, who's this Grimcutty guy? Like, man, he seems to be like really popular and whatever. There's a whole thing about him. I don't know why. And then all of a sudden, like Asha could have told her parents about this unusual thing, and then boom, like we could have had like Amir who was talking to his friend and saying like, "Oh yeah, I heard like some of my or I heard my kid talking about it, but I don't know what it was." And the guy was like, "Oh yeah, like I heard about this too, and here's the whole connection to that." And then boom, like the kids would have heard about it first, and then the parents would have heard about it, and so on and so forth. And like we'd have had the parents realize that this thing is like, man, this is getting some real traction, because like this thing like doesn't impact like I guess like COVID would, where everybody like really heard about COVID, or it's like, hey, if you haven't heard about this, like I need to explain this to you because it's everywhere. It's like it's really like the big topic, where it seems like Grimcutty, like you had to find out about it from some person who was to have like this story, because in the throughout this film we have these parents that are going on and policing their kid. They're not going on and parenting, they're policing. And that also was just like, man, we're kind of making like the parents out to be like parents that quickly lose trust in their kids. And then on top of that, they're policing them to, like, if you know what, if they're really going to police them, send them to jail. This kid can't stop cutting themselves. Send them to jail. Like, just so that way, like, they can be, like, protected by authorities that can go on and, like, stop them from hurting themselves. Because, like, figure out a way to help this kid somehow. But so, and plus also that would have the parents feel relieved that it's like, okay, they're in a place that they won't get harmed in, and so Grimcutty would go away, obviously. and problem solved again. So, but anyways, so uh, we also have this bizarre, like with Asha and like the kids, they're going on and they're stating it's like, well, yeah, the parents don't really understand us, and like that's the reason why they're so up in arms with this whole Grimcutty thing, and every little thing that they hear the word Grimcutty attached to, they're like, oh my god, ah. And so, like at some point, Asha in this film is like really like so confused why the parents are freaking out so bad about this thing. And also, it just seems that no one can find this anywhere. And the one like smothering mother that we see in the beginning of this film is to basically put out this blog of how she like doesn't trust her kid whatsoever. Hey, he's having a lot of fun, and how can that not be a good thing? He's so happy. How can that be going so wrong? We have this mother who just needs clicks on a blog somehow. And so she's finding all these things to continue to find clicks upon this blog. And so that all of a sudden, like somehow, like this blog ends up becoming this massive thing that everybody is quoting word for word, line for line. And like I was thinking, it's like, you know what would have really have benefited this movie? To have just one person just massively making a huge benefit from off of this movie, or from off of the Grimcutty thing. And technically we also had that. We had Melinda who's like, yeah, like I'm really benefiting off this blog, and like everybody's going on and doing what I'm saying verbatim, like as if I'm some weird god they're worshiping. It's weird. So with that said, I've kind of gone on and explained this movie and how goofy and stupid it is. So with that said, the grading of this movie is, it's just like, it's, I want to say it's almost like awful. It's almost awful. How we go on and have like the villainous character who it seems was to just like be tossed together within rarely a thought of like why this character should look the way it does. It's just like, oh no, we just like just go on and pick the randomizer and then just kind of give us whatever you got. It's kind of like how like the Power Rangers episodes go on and be later and later down the line, where they don't have to justify like the monster in an episode. It just like has to be there, and then they have a story that is to be with the monster, and they somehow have to connect it. And but they don't justify the monster. It's just like, oh no, like this monster just needs to be another thing for the Power Rangers to defeat, because we built like 40 of these things, and so like we just have to toss them all out there. So yeah, that ends up being what this villain ends up really coming out to be, is just another tossing out attempt where there was no justification of it, because it wouldn't make sense to have had any. So anyways, with that said, I think it's about that time. I've talked far too long about this, I apologize. But also, we have to talk more, because we have to go into spoilers. So, with that said, I think it's about that time to just double five this bad boy up, because it's about that time, yet again, to of course go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time to spoil this movie. So, we go on into the beginning of this film, and we have Melinda and her son, Brandon. Brandon, of course, is going to bed for the night. And so And I was like, okay, this is a good way to start out a horror film. I always like the little kid getting involved. But then I was like, man, this movie takes a weird start. Because, of course, we go on and have the mother that has these kitchen knives at a very high cabinet in the kitchen. And so when Brandon is to go on and realize that Grimcutty is coming after him, and this mother is to be the ultimate smotherer, we go on to have Brandon that goes into the cupboard, finds a knife, is to find his mother and stab into her, and that's how the movie begins. I'm like, wait a minute, what? But then they go on and in the later half of the film have to explain why that kid did it and the justification behind it. And I'm like, okay, sure. Whatever you gonna do, film? So then we go on to have Asha, who is to be the ASMR girl. And so she's like, yeah, hey guys, like I'm gonna whisper and say these things so softly because I have these headphones and I have these items here. Then I'm just gonna go on and I'm gonna crush under this car and you're gonna hear the sound of it. And it's gonna be great. So Asha goes on and starts crushing these things with her car. She crushes her headphones that no longer work. And so Asha, then after, she of course is to put this video out on YouTube. Asha is watching it and realizing how, like, it seems like she's getting fewer and fewer views on her videos. And so she's kind of getting upset by it. So, but all of a sudden, we go on to have Asha, who has other things going on, because we have Amir, Asha's father, that is to go on and have a no cell phone night. So we have Asha needing to put away her phone by this kind of wood spot and or this wood piece. And so we end up doing this because we have to go on to Asha's brother Cameron, his recital. And I'm like, wouldn't you not have your cell phone with you anyways? Just the problems that arise. So Asha is to go on and immediately just be bored with this recital or whatever this is. It a talent show? I'm not quite sure. So Asha goes on with her friend to go through her YouTube video, and so her friend is trying to give Asha tips on like how she can possibly get more traffic to her YouTube videos, as well as also finding out that another like student of theirs named Cassidy is to go on and say one thing only on the YouTube video, which is wow. And so we have the girls kind of contemplating back and forth whether or not the wow meant like, wow, this is great, or like, wow, really? Like, you did this? Why? And so all of a sudden, Kamir is seeing that his daughter, it's like, oh, like, she's on her friend's cell phone, and I can't have that because no cell phone night. So, but also Amir is going on and talking to, obviously, one of his neighbors or one of his friends. And so they're chit-chatting about this new trending thing that, of course, is to be about Grimcutty and this cutting challenge that is going on. And supposedly, one kid had stabbed into his mother, and so that's the story that's going around. So it seems after they are to hear about this whole challenge thing that's going around, both Lay or Lee, I'm not quite sure which. I'm assuming it's Lay. Let's go with Lay, because that sounds interesting. So Lay and Amir go on to like tell their kids is like, well, hey, have you seen the picture of this Grimcutty character? Have you seen him? And the kids are like, no, we've never even heard about this. And the parents are like, well, there's a whole cutting challenge going on that people are taking knives to themselves. So, like, make sure that you guys don't go on and get involved in anything like that, or have any of that stuff. Kind of like don't even look into any of that stuff. And it's like, who is the one who was giving the picture and telling us all about this challenge? Like, couldn't you have just trusted me enough to make the right decision and just be like, oh no, I don't want to do anything with cutting. Like, no, I want nothing to do with that. Obviously, because I'm an intelligent person. So we have the parents that is just like, okay, like, well, we ended up telling our kids about this, so I think maybe they'll be fine. They won't go into doing this because they seem like level-headed kids, right? Worrying and justifying and so on and so forth, which just leads, of course, one of the kids who ends up getting attacked by the Grimcutty, who is outside the house, and then Asha is to kind of be going on and making this toast, and the Grimcutty ends up getting inside the house. And so Asha can go on and see this thing and be like, oh my god. So Asha screams as this thing is coming at her, and so all of a sudden the parents run down and they're like, hey, what's going on? How can I help you? And so Asha's like, somebody like intruded into our house, and so Amir is like closing this door, and they end up calling the cops. And so the cop ends up going on and is to hear Asha's statement about what all happened. And so the cop is like, well, did you see this man? The Grimcutty character? And Asha's like, well, yeah, that's what I saw. And so the cop ends up kind of pulling the parents aside. It's like, F the kid, right? Uh, like her life really isn't in danger. And so the cop is to go on and talk to the parents and just say, like, well, yeah, I think your kid just gone on and just cut herself and is lying about some character that was to try and like threaten her because for some reason this challenge just wants all these kids to just lie. Where in the rule book of this whole challenge that doesn't exist is there such a statement where it is to say, like, hey kids, lie to your parents all the time? Like, man, the real trust is just gone between parents and kids, because we would honestly have like a mirror or Lay say after this, it's like, well, like, I trust my kid to tell me the truth. So, like, I don't rationally understand where you're telling me that my kid is going to lie to me. That doesn't seem right. That doesn't seem like my kid. So maybe you should really be looking into this boogeyman that you guys are obviously not really giving a crap to look for. Because the guy just justifies, it's like, well, if this thing really does exist, then it must be a number of kids all trying to do this prank at the same time because they've been getting a call about this thing all night long. And all night long. All night. So we then turn around and, of course, have the parents that are like, well, man, we should really go on and do our due diligence and do our research and figure out like this Grimcutty thing and what it really is. And so they're searching and searching and searching, obviously getting more worried about it. So we have the parents that are to figure out a way to try and stop their kids from going on and learning anything more about this Grimcutty thing. And so we have the parents go on and decide, like, well, you know what? Like, I think that the whole, like, no cell phone for a night is working out so well that we have now just quickly bought this combination briefcase or box that I think we should just go on and put all of our cell phones in there and laptops and electronical devices and keep it in there for a week because we're all going on and paying cell phone and Wi-Fi bills and all kinds of stuff. But like I just want to just go on and say that all of these items will now be useless. You know, the items that we're paying a bill for. But like I really just want to go on and make sure that these electrical devices being held in a box is going to keep my kids safe. And so we have Asha that is to really just like not want to go on and give in to this because she realizes how irrational this seems. But the younger son just kind of gives into it right away because come to find out this kid has an alternate way to still get to the internet by going on this other laptop that they aren't aware that he has. So Asha is to try and fight this, but at some point she goes on and gives in to then just turn around later and try to break into this case to get her phone out because she wants to go on and try to call her friends to see like if they know anything about what's going on. Or how some things might be escalating because of these parents being over worried. So Asha goes on to just get her cell phone, and come to find out, we have some messages being sent by Cassidy, and so all of a sudden Cassidy ends up calling Asha. So now Asha is kind of going around her house trying to avoid uh, getting her parents to find out that she has her cell phone and she's calling somebody. So Amir kind of hears some noise and he gets up and he's like, okay, like, what is this sound coming from? It sounds like Asha calling somebody on a cell phone. So we also have Amir who is to go into the locked case and is to find out that somehow it was opened. And so Amir is kind of going through the case to not find any knives in there or sharp objects, but instead is to find out that this phone is missing. So when we go in, we go through this movie. Asha is calling her friends, and it seems we have Cassidy that's mentioning, like, well, I haven't gotten the talk yet, but it seems that I'm going to get one now. And we have Cassidy that is telling her friends, is like, well, hey, like, no matter what, like, I've heard of some kids who are having themselves being like stayed home kids because their parents like can't trust the school system to keep their kids safe. So Cassidy is telling all the girls, is like, hey, do whatever you need to do to justify to your parents that you need to go to school, that learning is fun, or some goofy thing like that, some goofy crap. So Amir is to go on and like find out that Asha is using her phone, and we also have Grimcutty that is making his way to cut into Asha. So the parents are now realizing, oh my god, my kid is cutting herself. I don't know why. Because Asha was to be worried about this Grimcutty character, and so she had this knife by her, not knowing what she was to go on and expect. So Asha ends up going on and cutting into herself. And so we have her parents that are going on and trying to figure out ways to uh, kind of heal her wounds at home, because we of course have Asha's mother, who is to be this nurse, and we even have at one point where Lei is going uh, to her work, and one of the nurses is stating like, well, hey, like, your kid isn't going on and doing that whole Grimcutty challenge, like, are they? And Lei's like, I don't know. Like, I can't trust my kids, I guess, as well as I thought I was, because everyone's bringing it up and making me worry. So, we continue on the path here, and so we have Asha, who goes to school the next day, and it seems that there's a limited number of students at the school, and so we of course go on and have this principal who's talking to all the kids, and like is being like one of these kind of guidance counselor kind of characters that's like, well, hey, like, you guys can talk about anything, like, you can talk about whatever you like, but you know what, I'm going to go on and bring in this motivational speaker that is to go on and try to figure out how he can go on and relate to what's going on, and he is basically to be the equivalent of a puppet show. Because that's what this guy really is, like the motivational speaker thing. Like, honestly, when I would go on and hear these guys in like the early years of my school years, like, I would go on and listen to them. But like the longer and longer I would go on to have heard these kind of characters, I would realize that it's like all this stuff is pretty straightforward crap. And uh like most of the stuff is like, well, like, if you want to feel good about yourself, just be yourself. That means nothing. So we have this guy called Dave Bagliardi, who comes in and he's like, hey guys, like, how's your day going? And they're like, he's like, no, like, how's it really going? And they're like, and like, okay, I guess I'll take that. Because I know you guys are going through some tough times. And then it's like, what a clown. So we have Cassidy and Asha that just go into the bathroom because Cassidy, like, tosses this piece of paper to Asha, and she's like, F this crap. Like, no, like, this is garbage. Like, why did I come to school for? So, or what did I come to school for? So, Cassidy and Asha are both in the bathroom, and they're thinking, like, you know what? We should just get out of here. Like, we should just leave. So, we have Cassidy and we have Asha who leave to go to this party. And, like, we have this one guy that his parents are out of town, so they don't care. So there is just a number of other kids that just, I guess, have nothing better to do because they're, like, meant to, like, be home, so they all, like, snuck out to this party, I'm assuming. So all the kids are just kind of over it because they have not seen the Grimcutty character. So at this point, they're just playing around or pretending that they have these fake knives, and they're pretending that they're going to go on and stab themselves or cut themselves because they're now playing this off as some kind of goofy joke. But not everyone is going to take it that way because, of course, because there's multiple different ways you could see this footage that they're going and putting this and placing this online. So, and all of these characters are realized, like, so you're afflicted by that stupid Grimcutty thing? Oh, I get, like I didn't think anything of it. So because we have characters that don't really have parents, and so like they're not conflicted by this because their parents did not care about this child because they're off on some tropical island somewhere sipping mojitos and they could give a rip. So we go on and we have a mirror that is to make it to the school. It's to find out that Asha, like, oh hey, like it's like school is out and Asha isn't in school. Like, so Amir is to try to go on and figure out and track down where his daughter is, because again, policing instead of parenting. So come to find out, both Lei and Amir together are to try to track down their daughter, because heaven forbid, like, she goes on and continues to cut herself somewhere, because she's just cutting herself, not having something cut her, because that would have made a lot more sense. So Asha goes to this party, and now as her parents are policing their way to get to her, because there is to be a post that Lei finds out that Asha is to be at this party, and so immediately she knows exactly where this party is, or both of her parents do. So we have Asha that is fighting off the Grimcutty as she's now being followed around this party by this entity. We have Asha that is asking anybody at this party if they are to go on and see this thing, and they're like, no, we don't see this. So Asha is getting followed around by this thing, and that leads her to now have to go on and put up a fight against this thing. So she tries to go on and fight against this thing, and it stabs into her legs, and she gets a good one stab in, and the thing runs off, and she's like, aha, like maybe that'll be the one way to if I can kind of like establish dominance against this thing, maybe it'll just go away, maybe I can scare it away, maybe that's all that I need to do. So the parents arrive at the party, and they find Asha, who is still running away from this thing in some part of this place. And by that time, again, we find Asha has consistently been more stabbed into. And so the parents are going on to figure out a way to nurse the wounds of their child. But we also had Asha, who was to go on and find out through this computer that the woman named Melinda was to be the whole cause of this thing, and that she was putting up this blog about the Grimcutty. And so Asha is to go on and hope that Cameron is still using his computer. So Asha sends all this stuff over to him, and Cameron is to find out exactly where this girl lives, so they can kind of hunt her down and just be like, okay, like, why do you have this thing on your blog, and so on and so forth. So Cameron finds it out, figures it out, and so we also have at a point where Cameron is to see on his computer, this video screen, that this thing is coming closer and closer to him. Come to find out, it's the Grimcutty. So Cameron ends up getting stabbed with this thing, and so by the time that the parents end up going on and grabbing Asha, bringing her back home, they then find Cameron and he's stabbed, so they have to go on and send him to the hospital. But then also they have to turn around and also get Asha there because like she needs painkillers and stuff like that because of all of the uh, possibly sewing up and whatever they have to do for this girl's wounds. So, come to find out, we have Asha that goes on to, while at this hospital, leaves to get her mother's car. And I think we also have like a disagreement between the parents because the dad is going on and talking about that this is some like bizarrish like hacking thing, or this is some kind of weird like internet manipulation thing, or it's some kind of like these kids are being hypnotized to do all of this, and like it's not really real, and so on and so forth. So the mother is just like, really? Like, you want to jump to those conclusions? Okay, whatever. Like, this is some weird hacking, like, uh, thing that is to, like, be beyond our control. So, but yeah, so Asha goes on at some point and is to take the car, that of course is her mother's, while her mother, I think, is at work. So, Asha goes on to find Melody's home, and oddly enough, we have Asha that when finding Melody or Melinda. Why was I saying Melody? It's Melinda. Melinda ends up talking to Asha as if she's never heard of any of this stuff that she's really talking about. And Asha's like, "Well, you did this vlog, right? You did the thing, right?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, like, but I didn't think that that would become popular, or anybody would even go and see this thing. But it's, I guess, if you're stating that you came here from that, like, wow, like, must be really, really going well." And the girl's like, "Well, yeah, like, you put the whole like Grimcutty video up there, and so." Like, you're the whole like beginning of this whole thing, the whole problem that everyone is having. And so come to find out, Asha is to realize that Brandon is to be not in the best way, because Brandon is to have possibly starved or be severely dehydrated from the fact that his mother just consistently puts him in this kind of padded room and keeps him in there lock and key. And it's to say, it's like, well, if he just stays in that room, he'll be safe. So, because like the smothering mother will know that he'll be safe if he's just in that room. But so we have Lei, who gets a person to drop her off at this location, and so now she goes on to knock on this door and like, "Oh hey, yeah, you're Melinda, you're the blog that everybody is to connect with Jim Cuddy or Grimcutty." Why am I saying Jim Cuddy? Grimcutty. Blah, words. So Lei is to say, it's like, well, like, my car's here, so it must mean that my daughter is here. And Melinda's like, well, yeah, like, I had to go on and I had to lock her in a room because I couldn't trust her. Like, she just came into my house and I was like, "Who are you, stranger?" And so I locked her into a room. And so we had Lei who's like, oh, okay, well, that's fine. Like, I can understand that. So we have Asha that goes on and takes Lei, and Asha is trying to explain to her mother that, uh, like, the Brandon kid, he's in danger, and that her mother should drop whatever she's doing to try and get him and keep him safe, because also Brandon's mother is to have a gun. When Brandon was to get out of the room, we had Brandon's mother come in with this shotgun and was to be upset that everyone is bringing up this Grimcutty character, and Melinda was to have gone on and easily kept her son safe, but she can't keep him safe when she's worried about this Grimcutty character, and then all of a sudden the Grimcutty character shows up. So we have Brandon who just stabs into his mother and just watches as his mother just drops down this flight of stairs, possibly to have gone on and died, but no, it would make sense because they send her to the hospital to just kind of hope to heal her wounds. So we also have Lei that is to finally, after going into her car while talking to Asha, and rationalize, it's like, wait, like, why am I doing all of this stuff? Like, why am I policing you so heavily? Why am I trying to control your every decision? Like, why am I doing all of this? Like, it doesn't make sense anymore. And it takes, like, Lei to break this window as her daughter is like very in fear that the uh the Grimcutty will get closer and closer to her and attack her. So the mother finally is to chill out somehow or another. She's to just find this way to like get all of this anger to the point of her rupturing and breaking this window to finally get her to completely calm down. So because I just saw this movie Rupture anyways, it's very weird, but like I ended up watching it and then I couldn't justify. I'm like, well, I don't think this movie I could justify like reviewing, because if I were to have gone on and justified reviewing any other movie, this one would have to be one to justify, right? Reviewing, anyways. So we have the mother that goes back into the place, grabs the kid, brings him back to the hospital, and is like, "Hey, like this kid almost like died, because he needs to be dehydrated and he needs food." So we have the mother that hugs the daughter, and so now the mother is to realize that there may be a problem with Amir that might lead to Kamran dying here. So, like, the mother is like, hey, we need to figure out a way to, like, calm your dad down because your dad is much more, what is the perfect word here? He's much more excited about this whole Grimcutty thing to an absurd level where, like, the mother is to not be able to get half as excited as Amir is for whatever goofy reason. So I think like Amir is to be so worried for the both of the parents, so that is to probably be the easy way of how Lei was to have figured out how to have calmed down because the escalation of Amir. So we have a mirror that goes on and is to find Kamran's laptop. And so he starts thumbing through it and is to realize this kid's search history because the goofy thing in the beginning of this film is Amir is to mention it's like, well, hey, like we like respect your privacy, but like we have the dad by the end of this movie who's like looking through his son's history of the internet. And how could that not go horribly awry? And so the dad goes on and is to have the kid wake up, and the father starts like pinging on him about like, well, hey, like all these random items that you've just searched, like why did you like want to go on and figure all this out? And that's the thing, like the kid is like, well, I don't know anything about this, like I don't know why anyone is talking about it. And so when anybody talks about it, I just Google search it to look it up to understand why anyone is talking about it. And so that leads this kid to just being curious. And so the dad is just like, well, your curiosity has gone far too far. So that just leads the dad getting like absurdly worried. So the kid starts to run off and he ends up getting chased by the Grimcutty. So we have Asha who finds Kamran, and so she is to try to figure out a way for the Grimcutty to come after her instead of her brother. And so that, of course, is to get Amir to be more focused on Asha and like her connection with the Grimcutty challenge and whatever, and so that way the Grimcutty will come after her instead of her brother. So Asha is consistently talking to her dad, and she has these the scissors in hand, and so come to find out, we had Asha's mother who is trying to go on and give Amir this kind of like sedative or this like muscle relaxer or something to get this guy to calm down. And the guy does not go on and take it, but he has it with him. So at some point, Amir was early trying to want to give this to Asha while Asha was to have these scissors in her hand. So we have Asha that is going on and talking about the Grimcutty thing and how she, of course, wants to be more involved in this. And Amir's like, "Oh no, you can't go on and you can't do that, like, because you'll die." So and so on and so forth. So Kasha or Asha, man names. Uh, Asha's going on and running away from her father, going into this boiler room. And that's again when we have the Grimcutty who's going after her and stabbing into her more. And so Amir is realizing, oh my god, like, I have to, like, chase after my daughter to help her. And finally, if we didn't have the moment where Brandon was to be choked by the Grimcutty, lifted up in the air, for Lay to then realize, like, okay, there's something more going on here that we're not aware of. Because we even had the moment where Asha was wrestling her cell phone with her dad, and all of a sudden the Grimcutty, like, appeared underneath them, and Asha got so terrified by that she like gave her phone to her dad because she was so terrified. So about this Grimcutty being underneath this table bizarrely. So Amir is chasing after his daughter, and again we get the same exact moment with Brandon with Asha here, where Grimcutty ends up grabbing Asha and lifting her up in the air to then forcibly have Amir realize that there was a reason why his wife was to give him this medication, and so he stabbed it into himself as Asha had accidentally stabbed into her father. And so Amir is to realize the mistake he was to have made, and so now he's going on and trying to apologize to his daughter, saying that he deserved being stabbed by her, and she's like, no, like I didn't want to stab you, and so on and so forth. So they're trying to make up, they're trying to make amends, and so yeah, so by the end of this, we of course are to figure out a way to beat this. And so then Asha goes on and is to explain that she didn't go on and kill her father. Her father made a full recovery through this ASMR video, and that she has to go on and explain about the whole like Grimcutty and if her parents still worry about it, and so on and so forth. And that just kind of wraps up the film, and that goes into the end credits, to where honestly the girl just states it's like, well, like yeah, the parents don't understand us, and so we have to go on and maybe just try to talk to them until they can understand us more. But we also had like the girl who is the state. It's like, well, yeah, there's some things that I really get into, Dad, that you just don't understand, and it's all like it's all that kind of garbage. It's all that kind of crap they were trying to sell in this movie. Here's also the thing that at the end of this, because this is going to be the end of the review, the one thing that kind of was the biggest joke of this movie is you have to go on and use some kind of like mobile device, or you have to use some internet, or you have to go on and use some kind of something to get into Hulu, correct? To be able to watch this movie. And so to go on and have Hulu trying to put out a film where people are to try to get rid of all of their electrical devices and all their electrical items. Like, isn't that counter advertising? To have a film where it's like, hey, yeah, don't go on and go and use any of these things that are to lead you to possibly watch a movie on Hulu. That seemed just counter advertising. But not only that, we had the one part where Melinda was to have in her trash can as Asha was to kind of go through the house and kind of look around. She spots that there is like a number of like these tablets or these laptops that are all broken, and then they're all in this trash can because like yeah, that is to obviously I guess be with all the young kids who of course are to use their technology. You can't go on and have put away the real villain here, which was the kitchen knife. You have to go on and just state like, well, the kids all know about the technologies, so they need to just have the parents just get rid of all of that. Feels like somebody who wrote this film like really just like was to hate the fact that their kid or their whatever like is to be really tied up in all of their gadgets and their phones and their whatever, so they just wanted to write a film that is to be like the parent and the versus the kid, and to get rid of all the technology and whatever. Like there's just a lot of goofy things that this movie tries to do. And so with that said, I think I'm just gonna go on and get out of here. We also had the scene where Asha that was with all the kids, and they ended up finding out that Cassidy not only stabbed into her leg, which she then goes to the hospital for, but then the girl turns around and ends up having the Grimcutty cut into her throat, because we start to go on and have certain parents that are all going on and getting psychologists or therapists to look into their kids to try to figure out why are they doing all of this cutting, why are they doing this challenge. And so we have characters like Cassidy that's stating that, well, if my parents are going on and getting very worked up about me needing to get this therapist, man, am I dead? Because if this thing goes on and attacks every time that my parents get really worried, then it's definitely going to go after me this time and kill me off. So that's where they start really understanding that, like, if the parents could just chillax and just calm down, that the kids would not be going on to be running away from this entity, from this thing, from this Grimcutty, and all our problems would be solved. So, with that said, I'm going to go on and solve my way out of here. I apologize for sometimes I would say things like incorrectly. And plus, also, I didn't know how certain names were pronounced in this film. But I'm also just kind of like, bleh. Just a little bit of with the mouth by the end of this. So with that said, I'm just gonna go on and just try to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.